Hey, hey, hey. We're live. It's Thursday.
It is Thursday. Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. And you know what that means?
Yes, it's the More Than I Do live podcast with Derek and Sherelle.
It's time for the podcast, More Than I Do. I'm telling you, I've said this before, but I go, hey, hey, it's Thursday because it's always a joke for between me and Derek because of NFL season, football season. And they started out with you always had Sunday night, Monday night, Saturday was college, and then they added Thursday to begin the week rather than Sunday beginning the week. And with that Monday begin the week. What begins the week before Thursday?
Nothing. Thursday starts the next week.
Right, but before that, what started the next week?
Sunday.
Okay, so I had it right.
Yeah.
So, but I say this because I'm going somewhere, people. I'm going somewhere.
I'm going somewhere because 2 weeks from tonight is game one. The season starts. I remember when we would go to church on Sunday morning.
Yes.
And it was an 8:00 service.
Yes.
And then our pastor changed it to our first service was 9:00, and I lost that extra hour. And I was like, hey, I need to go somewhere where it's 8:00 service so I can be out by 10.
He was praying to God that they would change it back.
Thursday at 7, the More Than I Do live Facebook.
Hey, you're gonna have to figure this out.
Hey,
but,
okay.
I always say Thursday because that was a joke that he'd be like, hey, it's Thursday. I mean, that was football. Why am I bringing this up? And why am I talking about football? Because today we're talking about calling an audible in life and in business. Now, I know some of you are like, what the heck is an audible? Okay. All right. So I'm going to get the expert to explain. Let me just let you guys know. Let me be very clear about this. Okay. So I don't want no mistaking on this. Football season, he has no wife. All he has is football on Sundays, Mondays, and Thursdays. He has no wife. That was my me time. That's my girlfriend time. That's my spa and shopping time. I don't know what I'm going to do this year. Who knows? But what is an audible?
So audible is when the team on offense, they go into the huddle and they call a play. Meaning they're going into the huddle and saying, this is what we're about to go, and this is what we need to execute.
Okay, so that's just like a team meeting or a family meeting where we say, hey, this is what's happening. This is what we're going to be doing on Tuesday. This is what we're going to be doing in 20 minutes, an hour from now. This is the game plan.
That's it. And so then they go to line up to execute the play. And the quarterback is the leader. The quarterback is the leader of the team on offense. And so when they get to the line of scrimmage, which is where the ball is placed, they can see the setup of the defense. Now, looking at the setup of the defense, that person should be smart enough to know, can my team actually execute what we just called? Or do I need to call an audible and change it to a different play?
So they're changing the play on the line, like where they line up with the set hut type thing. They're changing it to a different, not the play we had in the huddle.
Not the different play in the huddle.
Okay, I know for some of y'all, this is going to be like, I can't deal with this because we had a plan.
We had a plan.
And now you telling me that there's something different?
You'll hear, you'll hear quarterbacks yell, kill, kill, kill. They're killing the play that they called in the huddle and changing it on the fly because there is a better play that can be called for a better execution and a better outcome. Peyton Manning was one of the greatest ones. You used to hear him yell Omaha all the time, and people were like, what in the world? He's calling a play and calling an audible to his team to say, let's change the play to something else that gives us a more favorable, that should net us a favorable outcome.
Because the other team, from what I see, the other team knows what's going to happen, and we're not going to be able to be successful in what we're doing.
Right. Just like in life, football is really a chess match. You have the defense trying to stop the offense, but the offense trying to beat the defense. And it's a chess match. And so based on your lineup, shows what plays they think that you're going to call, so I can stop you from a defensive standpoint.
Got you. So now let's talk about this. Thank you, babe.
Right.
I'm telling you, I have to stop him from talking because he'll keep going the rest of the night about football. I'm telling you, he's a genius when it comes to football. I'm not mad. Let me just put this extra tidbit in for whoever is mad at their man because football season. I looked and I had to say, this is one thing that he loves, and I mean really loves. He doesn't have a whole lot of hobbies. He really loves it. Mm-hmm. He's home. He's not at a bar. He's not at somebody's house. I don't know where he is at ungodly hours of the night. He's home. He's in his favorite chair. He's got all kinds of things up because he does fantasy football. It's a whole nother thing. We're not going to talk about that.
Not today. Yeah, no.
And I know where he is.
That's right.
I know what he's doing. And he's in heaven. Like, he is just loving this time. Why would I get mad at him for that? Why would I get mad at him? Okay, that's a whole nother show and a whole nother session. But I just had to plug that there.
Yeah, and I think it's important to plug that there because while we are a married and business show, the marriage part, you have to understand the things that your spouse really likes to do. And if it's not harming anybody or anything or the marriage, you have to allow some of those things to happen. I could have a wife who would look at me on Sunday and be like, oh my God, you're ignoring me. This is ridiculous. You can't ignore me like this. But that's not the case. She sees that I'm doing something that I'm passionate about and enjoy. And so I really thank her for that.
And I try to stay out of the way. I'm either upstairs or I'm out. He doesn't like those days. Sundays has become the days because I used to go shopping, spa, when the spa was up, just all of those things. Or girlfriend time.
I think this year my pockets will enjoy a little bit better.
I don't know. We have online shopping. So who knows? Who knows? Anyway. Who knows? But we're calling audibles today. We're calling audibles in life. That's me calling an audible. I'm not going to go out. I'm just going to go online.
Right.
That's an audible, right?
That is an audible.
What a plan usually is, and you kind of modifying that plan on the fly.
Yeah. A lot of times things happen, and you just have to make a change. Prime example. I'm glad the Lord was with me, and I'm fine.
I'm so happy.
But this past Saturday, I got in my vehicle. And
you do what you always do.
And I decided that I was going to get up and cook breakfast for her. And we actually got to see my niece. Quick story. My niece graduated high school. Her mother was based in Korea. We were supposed to go to Korea to her graduation back in May. COVID happened, and so we could not go. And now she's back in the States and she's getting reassigned, and she actually made it in North Carolina, and I got to spend a weekend with her. And so I decided to get up and cook breakfast for everyone. And so I get in my vehicle Saturday morning, I turn on my radio, and I'm headed to the grocery store. All is fine. I'm looking, I'm seeing people out running, riding their bike, cutting grass, and I'm like, yeah, this is going to be a good Saturday morning. I'm approaching the stop sign, and my brake pedal goes all the way to the floor. All the way to the floor. So what did I have to do? I had to call an audible because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to stop without hitting a ditch or hitting someone. And I whipped and I weaved. Now I'm doing I have a Yukon truck, so
XL, Denali XL. This is not a little car.
I'm whipping and moving, and I get to an open place where I can coast, and I coasted maybe close to a mile before the vehicle actually came to a stop. So when you're doing audibles, you have to also rely on your experience. Your experience will guide you to call a better play.
Is that just like, because if they hadn't had experience in practice and in knowing what those plays were, then they couldn't call a different play or know what play will fit right there from what they called before. So he could have called a play that was totally opposite and had them running into each other if he really didn't know from experience what worked with what.
Exactly. And in my truck situation, you know, I grew up on a farm. I started driving tractors at age 6 or 7. So I kind of been driving for quite a bit of time. So
I don't know what the statute of limitations is on that, but okay.
Well, okay. But I've been driving for a long time. And so I relied on driving experience to kind of guide me through that particular situation.
Yeah. So, you know, when we talk about Audible in life or Audible in business, you know, we've talked before. I remember one of our last ones that we talked about podcasts was about keeping the main thing and knowing what that main thing was.
Yep.
But we've also talked about understanding what the trends are in your life and in your business, because we know that everything is cyclical. And if you look back in your life, we were just talking about this in the car, right? About just habits, certain habits that you have, or certain things that you do that you don't realize that you're doing with different people. So it didn't seem like the same habit, but it actually at the core is the same habit.
Same habit. Yep.
So understanding those trends that happen in your life allow you not to continue to fall into the same pitfalls that you fall into every single time. So let me give you an example of one in our marriage.
Okay.
And we've used this before. We talked about this before, I believe. There was a time when we were newly married, because we didn't have the experience and we didn't know two people coming together, and we didn't live together before we got married. So we really didn't know each other. We lived in 2 different states. And so in that, there were certain things that maybe made you a little upset or made me a little upset. And then we would try to have those conversations, and they would be not so nice conversations. Now, we never got to cussing each other out or throwing bows, or we don't tolerate any of that in this house. We respect each other, but high-pitched yelling maybe, and it was more frustration of not understanding the other person or not knowing where mentally that other person was at that moment. You remember those days?
I remember those days. And you know, when I look back, it really came from what was my background and what did I see compared to what she saw growing up, and ideals of marriage. Not knowing that the reality when they say marriages work is because you have to come together as one and kind of put away some of those probably false realities of what you think marriage should be.
Absolutely. 100%.
So those drag out conversations when we first married was really me marriage to be based on what I
and
saw.
Me on my side.
And
So we were coming to an impasse, or it would allow us to be upset with each other for days at a time. Luckily, we don't sleep well when we're at an impasse. So we figure out a way to make it happen, because neither one of us can get sleep. So that was happening. But now let's move forward. So let's talk about the trend.
Okay.
So understanding those things that may irritate your spouse. And I'm talking to people. So if you're a new couple that's in business that are watching this, or a new couple, then there may be things that you need to start looking at, right? Because there could be some trends from dating that you just didn't realize. If you're a seasoned couple and have been married for a while, you definitely have some data
Yes, you do.
there that you can go back and look at and see the types of responses or what doesn't feel good to the other person. You know, a lot of times I was saying to him, that hurt my feelings. He had never heard that before. And so for him, he was like, oh, you're joking, because the person that he knew was kind of hardcore. And I was hardcore until I got home and in the privacy of my own home. And because he's now part of that privacy, and I feel like I could let my walls down with him, that was something that was new or different for him. And so I say that because over time he realized, oh no, she's not joking. That's real. And I need to learn how to respect that and know that she's not playing. And then there's times that I needed to look and say, that's gonna hurt his feelings, or he's at a place right now where to bring up a conversation with him would not be the best.
Right.
So we went from several days to now, I mean, I don't even know if it's hours now, because we just notice quickly when we're off that page or when something's happening. So we quickly call an audible. We quickly will say, oh, no, we're not going to continue down this path. What we're going to do is we're going to change this course.
Yeah. You know, the reality is a lot of times we get too caught up in our emotions, and we allow our emotions to come out in conversations or arguments or whatever because of how we're feeling. If we actually just take a time to step back and deal with actual facts, actual factual data, then when you approach that person, you're out to have a better outcome.
Absolutely. So that could be calling an audible and saying, wait a minute, let's go to our corners and cool off, or let's just change this course of action. And now you see us, we've done it before on our podcast. We're like, well, hey man, I'm your friend. We learned that from other couple. To change the course of what's happening and not continuing down that same road, because it's not about who's right or who's wrong. It's about getting to whatever the result or goal needs to be.
That's right. The reality of it is, if you know your end goal, then as things come up, it's easy for you to say yes or no, because the question becomes, is this going to help me get to my goal?
Yeah.
If that's yes, then you do it. If it's no, then that's an easy no.
Yeah. So let me talk about a different type of audible. I know for me, when I look back in my trend and my data, just in my life, and as long as I've been living, it's not been long,
Yeah, you're a young buck.
I'm a young buck. When I look at that, I realize that when I start getting momentum and I start gaining momentum and I start succeeding at things, my health, something always happens with my health. Always. And I couldn't understand it before, but it always happens. Well, if I now understand that, I could put things in place as I'm moving forward to make sure that if or when something happens with my health, it doesn't stop everything. Because before, it will stop everything, and now I'm back at ground zero and I have to start all over and gain the momentum and things of that nature. So systems and processes can be your audibles, right? It may be something that I'm doing, but I put systems and processes in place so somebody can slide in.
Yeah, it makes me think about that evacuation chart in the hotels, right?
Yeah.
You see the plan of, in the case of an emergency, you need to evacuate. This is the way you go.
Yes.
And most people look at that and say, okay, whatever. And it's fine, right? It's fine until it's not.
Until it's needed.
Or it's needed.
Yeah.
Needed.
Yeah.
And so going back to that, systems and processes, we began to get a lot of momentum last year. I'll never forget it. We were moving. I mean, moving at a very rapid pace. And being that she kind of knew, my health would kind of fail me a little bit. She actually was, you were kind of sick for about 2 months last year.
3 months I was in the bed. 3
months in the bed.
In the bed, could not walk or move myself.
Last year we probably spent about 4 weeks in the hospital. Not consecutive, but
every other week.
Within a 35, 40.
Yes.
We was in there in the hospital.
Yes, we had good times.
Yeah. But again, we knew that, or she knew that, we put some things in place and business kind of ran as usual.
But we didn't skip a beat. Nobody knew. Unless you knew, you didn't know.
You did not know.
Nothing skipped a beat with business because of the process and systems that we put in place. Me knowing that those types of things happen. I wasn't expecting for it to happen. I wasn't looking for it to happen. And the main reason why I went to the hospital and had surgery, right, was not the reason why I stayed on my back for three months.
Right.
I was clear for that. Like 4 weeks later, 4 weeks later, I was clear of that.
Yeah.
And so with that being said, how many times with the kids, with your spouse or even in the business
Mhm.
that you keep having to start over, I'm asking you to stop. Take this time to look back and evaluate the data.
Mhm.
You know, I think about that, and then I think about when things happen, just like hurricanes, right?
Mhm.
There's seasons that we know that certain things are going to happen and certain things are going to come. And you talked about a preparation or a plan, and we still do not plan for that.
Right.
Hurricanes are not just about planning for your home. If you have a business, there's a whole nother preparation that needs to happen for the business as well. And I use it as an example because we get to and the hurricane comes and we're looking like, oh my gosh, can you believe that hurricane came and now we have nothing?
Yeah, go buy all the bread, all the eggs, and all the milk. I guess you're making French toast.
Hey, yeah, on what though? If
Mhm.
we have no electricity.
Who knows?
Oh, okay.
Who knows?
That's for another day.
Another day.
But I say that to say, so there's those kinds of trends that you can actively see.
Mhm.
But then those are those trends, like I talked about being sick and not knowing that I was going to be sick. I hadn't planned to be sick. I hadn't planned to even be where I was for 3 months.
Yeah.
I was supposed to be traveling internationally and a whole bunch of other stuff was supposed to be happening. But even that stuff was able to continue because of preparation. The team that was dealing with that and the preparation that had happened beforehand allowed them to execute without me being there.
Mm-hmm.
So whether I was a main piece or a side, support staff, whatever I needed to do had been done in a way that somebody else can pull it, take it, and run with it. When you look at your home, family is what I'm talking about. Running of the home is what I'm talking about. Running of the business is what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. When you're looking at those things, can anyone right now take and run with? Call an audible, not even a timeout. We're not talking about a timeout because we got time for times out.
Yeah, we don't have
this
time
play
to stop.
Gotta go. We've got to keep moving. Mm-hmm. Call an audible and someone be able to pick it up and run with it.
And if the answer is someone, yes, congratulations, you've actually built a business.
Yes.
If the answer is no, don't beat yourself up, but all you really have is a job. You created your own job. And so that's why for succession planning, you have to get the things in place. You have to prepare so that if you have to be removed, the business can still run.
100%. Not only the business, but let's talk about family. Let's talk about the household. I've got things in place that whether I'm here or not, it still runs. Mm-hmm. It still runs. How does that happen? By putting systems and processes in place that can still keep running regardless if you're there or not. Mm-hmm. When we look at this, when we look at the kids, when we look at our spouses, when we look at extended family that may be with us, when we look at our clients, do they know every single time something's wrong with you? Do they know, and they know it not because necessarily you're telling them, but because all of a sudden production goes down or business goes down or I can't catch you or all these, and it's different than taking vacation. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about, do they know about every single drama thing that happens in your life? Then there may be a problem. Derek talked about succession planning and he talked about having a job and not a business. A lot of times we keep everything here. We keep it here. People can't run with what's here because I don't know about you, but I don't know a whole lot of mind readers. From time to time I can read his mind, but it's just because we've been together for so long. I think just because we've been together for so long
right.
that we start thinking alike in a lot of ways. But other than that, who's a mind reader? Now I know they're out there, okay, somewhere, but 9 times out of 10, people are not mind readers, which means that they don't know what to do or how to do it in the case of something happening. Mm-hmm. Now, the other thing I want to talk about, we talked about preparedness. Mm-hmm. The other thing I want to leave you guys with is flexibility.
Yeah. Now this is one that I had some issues with because I have a plan. I'm going to stick to this plan no matter what. whether I'm beating my head against a cement wall or not, I'm getting through that wall somehow because it has to be this way. I'm glad I learned how to be flexible. I remember us being in the kitchen one time and she just looked at me. She was like, why are you so stiff? Get flexible. Be flexible. You need to be flexible. And I just remember, get flexible, get flexible. And so every time I feel like I'm beating my head against the wall, I think about, okay, let's get flexible. Let's get flexible. And once you get flexible, you can change some things and still get the same outcome, guys.
Other options appear, right? Other options appear. When you talk about calling an audible, remember he said they went to the line with a plan. They were on the line ready to go. And because the quarterback didn't just keep the plays in his head, but had shared the plays with the team, and the team knew the plays, he could quickly call something and they knew exactly what he was talking about, whether he called Omaha or something else. You know, people come up with funny things. Football is hilarious in that way.
Jared Goff one day, so he was quarterback for the Rams. I wonder if she was in the stands, but he said, Holly Berry, Holly Berry. And I was like, whoa, that's a new one.
Hey, I'm just saying. So he's here all day, folks. He's here all day. But being flexible means that your team knows, your family knows. Your family is your team, right? We're Team James. We're the Jameses.
We're the Jameses, yes.
So we've got to know what's happening with each other. We've got to know what the plans are. You know, every day we wake up and one of the first things we ask after good morning, how are you feeling? What's the next thing we ask?
I don't know. Some morning it's like, what's for breakfast?
Well, hey, that's a valid question too. Let me just say, breakfast and lunch and dinner are key questions in this household, okay? Yeah. Those are important things. But we say, what's on your schedule?
Right.
If we haven't asked before we went to bed the night before and been able to go over schedules for the week, if it's at the top of the week, and then reminding each other during the week, kind of what's on your schedule. It's not that I'm trying to keep up with him. It's not that I have to know every single thing he's doing or what he's doing. When we get ready to walk out the house to go somewhere, it's, hey, I'm going to go to such and such place. It's not that he's got to keep tabs and know exactly where I'm at all times. But it's number one, out of respect. But number two, so he knows exactly what's happening. So when he called to say, hey, there's something that happened with my brakes, I know pretty much where he is. And can get to him faster. Or if something else had happened or came up and he said, oh, I stopped by here and I needed to do X, Y, and Z. Okay, I know now to take over breakfast because his plan was to cook breakfast. The audible would be, I would then maybe go to the store and cook breakfast if something else had happened or anything like that. So it's about knowing the plan, not keeping tabs on each other, but knowing what's happening so you can understand, and then you can step in for each other, or your team can step in for each other, or for yourself when it needs to happen. The audibles call, things continue to move.
That's it. That's very important. I mean, and you know, from a man and safety standpoint, I want to know where my wife is. Not that I want to keep tabs on her or I don't trust her, but if I get an emergency call, I already know the general location of where I'm going. I don't have to sit and try to figure out, well, where is she?
Yeah. Or how she get there?
Right.
Or what's going on with that? Yeah. I'm just saying, having a family plan, having an individual plan, having a couples plan, having a business plan. And I'm not talking about business plan as in the business plan that you started your business with. I'm talking about the systems.
People still write those?
Absolutely. I think they're a little outdated in a lot of ways, but hey, that's just me. Hey. I believe more in profit planning than business planning, but there's a place for both of them, I guess. Yeah. You know, in some ways. But I digress from that because we're talking about audibles.
Yes, not profit today.
So with that being said, when you look back over your life, how can you avoid some of the pitfalls that you keep falling into? Whether it's life, whether it's marriage, whether it's business. Being flexible And being prepared. Being prepared doesn't mean that everything is ready and nothing's gonna slip by you.
Come on, Newton's law. Everything that can go wrong will go wrong. You just want to try to minimize risk as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you want to be flexible to change when things happen so that you don't stop moving, because again, every time you come to a complete stop, it's hard to get that momentum back. Now, if you just slow down, if you just have to slow down a little bit, it's easier to gain that speed back.
Yeah, not only is it easier to gain speed back, but if you at least have a plan or are kind of prepared, you can tweak on the fly. It's easy to tweak on the fly, like he did in the car, tweaked kind of on the fly because he couldn't stop. And with that being said, and that was crazy, I was going crazy, but that's a whole nother story for another time. But I do want to say, yes, flexibility, in this time of COVID that we've had, I've watched so many businesses fail and go out of business because they couldn't be flexible, because they couldn't do business the way that they always have done business. I've watched it in the church. I've watched it in families. I watched it in companies. Nope, this is what we've always done, and this is how we're going to always do it. Well, times have changed, people, or something has changed. We are in a pandemic. We are with COVID. We are at a heightened awareness in society right now over civil rights issues, and all kinds of things are happening. Business is not as usual. And even with going back to school or doing business differently virtually versus in person, or meeting, having friends, and we always get together and meet. Well, right now might not be the best time to meet. What is the Audible? What are you putting in place? What's the Audible?
What is the Audible? You mentioned something about being in COVID and the civil unrest that's in our nation. Yeah. For me, I don't do a lot of speaking about that in public.
No, this is like the first time. So I'm like, shh.
I don't do a lot of speaking about that in public. I mean, you have protesters that go out, and that's how they get their voice heard. I'm a believer that voices should be heard in the boardroom because things happen in the boardroom.
Those who have a seat at the table.
Those who have a seat at the table. But I want to say to all the viewers, all Facebook, everyone who's watching this, I believe in the bottom line. The bottom line is dollars and cents. And I really believe during this time, with all the civil unrest and things like that, is causing us not to pay attention to the bigger goal or the longer view. Yes, we have to vote, yes. But if there's no money, what does it matter about voting? What are we doing right now, guys? The census. The census needs to be completed. Not because they want to be in your business, but that's how about $465 billion every year gets allocated to your neighborhood. Not my neighborhood, your neighborhood. For schools, for roads. Businesses use it to decide what stores or factories or whatever to build in a location based on the population, the gender, and the age. Governments use it to allocate public safety, emergency preparedness. But so many of us will not fill out the census. The census is the game here, guys, because guess what? If your neighborhood is 1,000 people, 20% fill out the census, which is 200, they're going to give you money to support 200 people when we know it's 1,000 in your neighborhood. I know the census is done every 10 years. And so this is the time that we really need to focus on the census. Voting is important.
Voting next.
Voting next.
Yes.
But census first, because that allocates the dollars that whoever you vote for can help appropriate those dollars. If not, you're going to elect someone who still doesn't have any dollars to appropriate to any problem.
To help you with anything.
Okay.
I'm glad you brought that up. And I know that it's called calling an audible. Call an audible and fill out the census. Because it changes what happens in your community, in your neighborhood, the funding that you get, where you live. It changes that. It really does. And the reason why we're talking about the census before voting is because the census ends September 30th. So we've got time for voting. And yes, we're not saying don't vote. We're saying go vote.
Go vote.
But we're saying before you vote, fill out your census form. And you can go right online to I think it's census.org or census.gov. Census.gov.
Google census.
Right, it's there.
It's there.
2020 census is there. Thank you so much for that, because it really is. He just called an audible up in the podcast. All right, I see you. But it's really important, and we want to make sure that when we talk about what the schools need and not getting, and what our kids are not getting, and what our communities are not getting, and what our state is not getting, and whatever else, we're not getting it because we're not filling it out.
That's right.
And that's a whole nother ball game. You're right. It is a bigger ball game, because it only comes around every 10 years. And not only that.
Yeah, it's every 10 years. And, again, my opinion in politics, when you're talking about federal politics, they're all the same. They all went to school together. They just chose one side or the other because that's how our government is set up. I really feel like at a higher level, there is no Republican or Democrat.
Okay, that's a whole nother story. You are not going to call that audible.
I am not calling that audible. I'm not having that conversation today.
Not today.
Not today.
So what do we need to know, babe?
What do we need to know? Well, we need to know, one, you need to be prepared. You need to have plans, but within your plans, you need to be flexible, because whatever can happen will happen. And if you're not flexible, you're going to run into a wall and be hitting your head against the wall like I used to be before I got flexible and realized, oh, I can call an audible to still get to the same goal. Then lastly, fill out your census and make sure you vote. Census first, because it ends September 30th, and that's a long game, because that's every 10 years, and it's how money is going to get allocated over the next 10 years.
10 years.
10 years.
Not 4 years.
Not 4 years, 10 years.
Not 2 years.
And then register to vote, and because that comes up in November.
Right. This has been good stuff.
Yeah.
So next time I tell you that I'm going to do something by a certain date, you're going to be flexible with me, is what you're saying? I can call it audible and it's going to be okay?
Yeah, call audibles all the time.
Hey guys, we thank you so much for hanging out with us. This has been the More Than I Do live virtual podcast.
Yes, with Derek and Sherelle. If you want to connect with us, make sure you connect with us at morethanIdo.life.
Yes.
MorethanIdo.life. And also we want to shout out every.black. .black is the new .com. Every.black for streaming our podcast on their platform. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so if you want to catch any of our other podcasts that we've done thus far, you've got to go to every.black.
Yes.
All right, guys. Until next time, we say have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next
Thursday.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye.